Hello, everyone. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio Network, a subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. The views of the guest may not represent those of the host of the station. Folks, you're going to want to listen to my guest today because the book is fantastic. If you are planning retirement, if you are retired, you're thinking about retirement. Even if you are retired and you're thinking, what do I do with myself? You're going to want to listen to my guest. My guest today is Don Akchin, and you spell his last name Akchin. He wrote this wonderful book, The AfterWork, Finding Fulfilling Alternatives to Retirement. Don Akchin is a former journalist and marketing professional whose career path was littered with potholes and zigzags until he discovered his own life purpose in the afterwork. He publishes The End Game, a digital newsletter about aging with purpose and joy. And, folks, I'm going to put the link to The End Game in the blog. Highly recommend you check it out. Very important topics, and I think you will enjoy it. Don lives with his wife in Baltimore, and he's close to his 4 grandchildren. And I want to welcome Don Akchin to Chatting with Betsy. Welcome, Don.
Thank you so much, Betsy. It's great to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. I always ask the authors, what motivated you to write this book, which, by the way, folks, it's not a long book. It's very short, but it's so powerful, and it's so to the point. And I love that the print of it, Don. I could read it.
Oh, good.
I liked it. Even with my glasses on. So thank you for that.
All right, well, great. And to answer your question, I think what inspired me to write it was retiring myself and not having an easy time of it at first because what I thought would happen didn't happen. And realizing that this is probably true for a lot of people, I started talking to friends and started interviewing people who were retired and found that, in fact, it's not what we thought it was. In fact, I don't even like the word retirement, which is why I call it the afterwork, because I think that retirement always had that taste of being the beginning of the end. You know, it's a word that means withdraw or to retreat. And retirement was sort of the reward, the cherry on the top of the cupcake after you put in a hard life, but it wasn't expected to be a very long dessert. It was basically short because you were all pretty much all petered out at that point. And the afterlife is not the end of anything. It can be the beginning of something new, and that was my point in naming it that.
I like that. I think that's a great idea. I like that. And so, apropos, I'm interviewing today, Don, about this subject, about this topic in your book, because in doing this show, I meet many people. I have interviewed people that are writing books. They're in their 80s, 90s, and very successful. So we're at, I think, in society, we have this ageism, where we have this idea, okay, I put in my 40, 50 years of work, if you're fortunate, and now what do I do once I no longer am at this place of employment? And you have a lot of suggestions in your book, and I like that. Would you like to name some?
Well, I would, and before I do that, let me just say I think what's happened is we've been blessed with longer lives thanks to improvements in healthcare and medicine, to the point that when you retire at 60 or 65, you're now looking at another 25 or 30 years. And if you're in good health, most of those years can be very positive meaningful years. We were talking earlier, Betsy, about the fact that we look at our ages, and when we were younger, that seemed like very old people at those ages.
Yes.
But now people in those ages are quite vigorous, and they have their faculties, and they have their energy, and they still have a lot of zest. So longevity has opened up this possibility that we can begin something new at the end of our lives. We don't have to just sit and wait for the Grim Reaper. And 25 or 30 years is really too long to just play golf. It just is.
Yes.
So we might as well start something new. So what I have outlined are basically 4 broad alternative things you can do in this time. One is to keep working, which a lot of people like to do because they love what they do, and some people do because they can't afford not to. But doing that full-time is one choice. Working part-time in a gig or a side hustle or just part-time work to keep a little money flowing in is also a really good way to meet new people and get new experiences, maybe even work in a field that you don't know much about so you can learn something new. The third alternative is taking your hobby or your passion and creating a new business or it doesn't have to be a business, but really working your passion, the things that you once cared about and maybe had to put aside, something that you really are very passionate about pursuing, and you've got time to do that. And it doesn't matter whether you're good at it. It just matters that you're enjoying it.
Yes.
And the
That's
fourth
what I'm
is
doing.
to really think. Yeah, there you go. And the fourth alternative is to volunteer.
Yes.
To really, bring your knowledge and your experience to nonprofit organizations that do a lot of the meaningful work in this country and providing the threads that sew our societies together. And they can definitely use help in any number of ways. So those were the basics.
That is great points, and I believe you're right. I tell people in support groups, and these are people that were caregivers, as was in a caregiver for so long, I still am a caregiver, that I suggest live in the now, enjoy your loved one, but start planning for your future. Plan what are you going to do when your caregiving journey ends or when your employment, when you're no longer employed. And this is so important to think about because, Don, there's especially widows, well, widowers too, but I think a lot of women, they're like, well, what do I do now? And some people lost their skills if they were caregiving, took time for caregiving, have lost their skills. I think if you have the time when you're caregiving, brush up on some skills. Maybe you could take a course, at your own pace.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
That makes a lot of sense. And I know your own experience has been becoming a widow. And let me ask you, though, were you planning ahead toward the end? Or did
you know what? Don, this was, go ahead. You can finish asking me the question. Go ahead.
Well, I personally, I think a lot of people have a hard time imagining the future.
Yes.
I think this is true in retirement also. We can plan or we can think we know what it's going to be, but it's a surprise when we get there.
Yeah. Oh, yes. My story is interesting. People like to hear stories. It's ironic in a way that Matt, my husband, never planned retirement. He never talked about it, didn't plan it. And because I would ask him, Matt, what are we going to do when you retire? And he said to me, I won't be alive. I said, what makes you say that? He goes, because the men in my family don't live long. I won't be alive for retirement. And and unfortunately, Matt developed, for those who don't know, early onset Alzheimer's. So he stopped working at the age of 55 and lived for 10 years. I didn't think I would retire at 62, and I wasn't planning on it, but it was COVID. It was 2020. Matt had died, and I was still working, and I was going to work till I was 67, or if I couldn't for whatever reason came up, or the place closed. And as it turned out that COVID happened, my place closed, like everything closed down, and they didn't reopen because I was debating, Don, I don't really want to go back. Do I really want to do that anymore? Well, they made my decision for me. And I am enjoying my after work, and I like that phrase, the after work. I'm enjoying it. I cannot believe, I'll be 68 in December, so it's almost 6 years. It's 6 years in March that my place closed, that how fast the time went. I'm not bored. I'm busy. And I really am grateful that I had this platform, my show, that keeps me busy, Don. And so grateful. Yes. And I did turn my passion. I didn't know that I could interview people. That was a surprise to me. And I was very grateful to have met Jeannie White, who's the station manager, who discovered me. And, people say, well, Betsy, what do you do all day? I have no idea, but this show keeps me hopping. It keeps me busy, keeps my mind working. I get to talk to wonderful people like you. And I'm passionate about telling people about resources that could help them have a better life. And, Don, you are an excellent resource. Your book, The AfterWork, is an excellent resource. I'm thinking, wow, this should be really in every place of employment, or if they have a library, for someone to pick up and read. This is so important.
As we That's say, from your lips to God's ears. I'll see if anybody will help me do that.
It's of course, there's that's a Yiddish, I guess you call it a proverb. You want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans. And I didn't really, life does have its twists and turns, and we are living longer. And that's the thing with medical science. We are living longer. You're right. You could have 25 to 30 or more years after you stop working. Some people have to stop working due to downsizing. Some have to because of medical conditions or caregiving situations, but that you don't plan on. And I was fortunate that I was still able to work while caregiving. That's because I had my son helping me. But I'm enjoying life, Don. For the first time in my life, I'm enjoying life.
Well, that's wonderful. And my book, I hope, will inspire a lot of other people to enjoy what they have before them, and to not expect that it's just because you're in your 60s or your 70s that your life is at its end. And I have to confess, I didn't start out optimistic. I was kind of down about retiring at first. I kind of was thinking, sort of like your husband, that the end was near, and I was kind of looking forward to being done. But I got out of it. I started out writing books in my retirement, and I wrote a couple novels and realized that although that was what I thought I always wanted to do, it was really lonely. And it was hard to write for 2 years and never get any feedback on whether it was any good or not. And that bothered me. And I was fortunate to hook up with a teacher. Actually, she was creating a writing support group, or creatives support group. She was based in England, and it was a combination of inspiration for being creative and also a group that gave some feedback. And one of the first things that happened after I joined her group was somebody said, well, maybe you should write short stuff more often. And I thought, well, yeah, that makes sense. And I started my newsletter on Substack. It was more than 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. And lo and behold, I would write something and people would respond. And I didn't have to wait 2 years. I got response every week. And that made a huge difference and made me feel really like my writing was doing something and people were reading it, and I was getting good feedback about it, and that made all the difference to me. And that started me reading more about how other people were handling their age, and I turned into an optimist. I also read the research, scary that it is, that when you have a very positive outlook on life and you feel good about being old, your life expectancy increases by 7.5 years over those who have a negative attitude. And I said, well, it's time to get happy. So yeah. I'm going for those extra years.
Well, you know what, Don? I'm not ashamed of my age. I will be 68, Lord willing, in December. And I'm not ashamed of it because I feel so fortunate to still be alive. After caregiving for my mother-in-law and that, and the stress of that, I'm grateful that I am alive. And I have learned a whole new appreciation for life, living, and even if something goes wrong, like this past summer with my appliances, and I was a little down about it, and I said, you know what, Betsy, this is just a glitch. Right. I'm healthy, and it's a glitch that can be taken care of. There's a lot worse that could be wrong, that could go wrong, and I'm grateful for what I do have, and I think that's key also, Don, is the attitude of being grateful. Doesn't mean you have to like things in life, folks. Let me make that clear. Did I like my husband having Alzheimer's? Absolutely not. I hated it. But what I'm grateful for was the opportunity to grow as a person, meet so many wonderful people, and find my gifts that I am now using to hopefully change the world with the time that I have left on this earth. I want to change the world using my platform.
One of the things that you're talking about there is the ability to not let things upset you and to keep moving. And I have learned that the name for that is resiliency, and that in retirement it's really important to have it because, as I say, you can plan all you want, but you will be surprised by what happens. And if you're resilient, the surprises won't set you back. You pick yourself up and you keep going. And that's why it's really important to be able to roll with the punches, as it were.
Well, my dad used to say that.
To bounce back.
I'm
sorry, what?
My dad used to say that. Had to roll with the punches. Okay. Go ahead, Don. Sorry.
But it's really important. I have a chapter in the book about planners and people who wing it. And there are people in life, and I am not one of them, my wife is, who work everything out in advance in excruciating detail and know exactly how it's going to work, and they're great at it, and I could never do that. I'm more of a winger. I walk into a situation and say, okay, now what? But my contention is that whether you're a planner or a winger, you're going to need to be resilient after you stop your career and as we get older, we have losses. We have things that don't work anymore in our apartments and in our bodies. So, it's there's surprises to galore, and you have to be resilient to overcome them.
That is very true. My dad used to say to me all the time, Betsy, you got to learn to roll with the punches. I didn't get it at the time. I understood as life handed me punches one after another, and I used to say to I used to go to my father's grave and go, Daddy, be proud of me. I'm rolling with the punches. I'm rolling with it. And it's so true. I mean, I guess because, and not to be morbid, but as you're talking resiliency, Matt was 66 when he died. That's young today. My older brother was 67. He was retired, but he was still working. He was still working part-time. And you learn that life is so short, life is precious, and I just feel like, I say this a lot in my show, I say it a lot in support groups to people. Life is short. Yes, you can wallow in self-pity if you want to. I could do that. I could have wallowed in self-pity, but what good is that going to do me? None. Zero. I was not going to let Alzheimer's defeat me in life. I was not going to let it have that power. And that's why I like to encourage people. Don't let setbacks, and I know I'll agree the rest of my life for my husband, but don't let that rob you of the joy of living. I want to encourage people to buy your book and have a zest and joy for living. You talked about volunteer. I mention that all the time. You don't know what to do? Volunteer. There's I interviewed this man, was it 2 years ago already? Could be. Retired Colonel Cloyd Schmidt, and he has Veterans Last Patrol. They're looking for volunteers, hospice volunteers, people to make things for the veterans, and to write letters or to have the what they call gratitude cards, sending them a thank you card, holiday cards. These are things that people can do, and you don't have to leave your house if you don't want to. Go to a hospital, whatever. If you were a teacher, you like to teach, see if there's a school that you could adopt a class or tutor on the side. There is so much that people can do, Don, if they would look past, I want to say, their self-pity. That might sound harsh. I'm a Jersey girl, everybody. My father's daughter. So I say it like it is. And when you help someone else, you feel better about yourself. So it's twofold.
Well, that is so true. That is so true. I learned that very early. I was in a high school, one of those high school clubs that are service-related, and we would occasionally do things like deliver turkeys on Thanksgiving, and whenever we did something like that, I called it an inner glow project because that's how I felt. It made me feel really good inside that I had done something for somebody else. So I still enjoy finding those inner glow moments.
Yes, and I like in your book how you give examples of people who turned a hobby into a business, which is, awesome. And, and I just had a conversation with another author. People are afraid of failing. Oh, if I try this, what happens if I fail? What are people going to think? Well, first of all, who cares what people think? Second of all, in my opinion, successful people, yes, they did make mistakes. They don't look at it as failures. They look at it as a learning experience. Okay, this didn't work out, so maybe now I'll try experiment B. What did I learn from this mistake? Where if you think it's a failure, don't let it stop you. Learn from it and go on. Do you know how many people were told they couldn't do something or they weren't good at something and they became very successful? I could list a few off the top of my head.
There are many, yes.
So
Absolutely.
many. Yes, and you're right. People are starting their second career, some of them. Go ahead, Don.
I was going to say I'm 74, and I have reached the point where I remind myself that it is physically impossible for me to get embarrassed anymore. I've got nothing to be embarrassed for. And I think the point about the AfterWork is it's such a good opportunity to start something new because you're done with all of the adulting things you had to do. You raised your kids. You did the job. You supported the family. You checked all the boxes. You paid the mortgage, kept up with the bills, and now pretty much you're done with all of that. And those loads are not on you anymore. And while it might have been important not to make a mistake while you were trying to support a family, now it doesn't matter. Nobody cares if you make a mistake. It's not even a mistake. So try something, and it doesn't matter if you're good at it. Try it. If it doesn't work, try harder or give it up and try something else. Nobody's watching. Nobody's keeping score. You're not getting points deducted. You're really free to do everything you want to do. And that is what I try to encourage people in the book is you really reach the stage where you don't have to do the adulting things anymore, so you can recapture those childhood ambitions and see if they're still good.
Absolutely. I've interviewed many people who had their careers and they always wanted to write. And so they tried their hand at writing a book. They became bestsellers.
That's great.
And that is, and I said, you're such a testimony of having another career. Because we have this in society, Don, as you know, because you're 74, I'll be 68, of, they're old, they can't do that. And that stigma has to go away because we can do a lot of things. And, your mind may not be as 100% sharp as it was when you were 25, but that's okay. Or your body may not be as active as you would like it to be, but you work with what you have. And you just keep going. I have to tell you this, Don, and I'll tell the audience because I'm an open book. This show, and I really thank God that Ginny White found me. Excuse me. This show gives me a purpose. It really keeps me going. And I started the show when Matt was dying. And people would say, Betsy, how can you do that when Matt is dying? Well, because it helped me get my mind off and not always concentrate on what is going to happen. It was a lifesaver for me. I really felt that I was thrown a life raft, a life jacket, and been doing it. And I promised Matt that I would continue on. And if you are doing, I want to encourage people, and I'm sure you probably would agree with me, Don, of what you're doing now, and you're helping people, and you're doing something, and your partner, spouse dies. Yes, you had that grieving. You may not feel like doing it. I want to encourage people, keep on doing it if you want to. But I think it really helps. And, when Matt died, I'll be honest, I asked, well, who's Betsy? Who am I? And do I still want to, do Alzheimer's awareness? And I went to a social worker at the senior center because they do free counseling. And she said, well, what do you like to do? And she goes, and then that's Betsy. So ask yourself, what do you like to do?
That's right. You brought up a couple things I wanted to circle back to. You were talking about purpose. One of the things that's really hard about leaving a career, and this has been particularly true of men who are very focused on their careers to the exclusion of other things in life, when the career ends, they are lost. Mm-hmm. And there's this big hole in the middle of their life, and they don't really know what to do about it. Sometimes they don't have any structure anymore, and they don't know how to get it. They don't have a purpose. They they might feel guilt because they're not working, which I've certainly felt. And it's a very difficult transition for some people. Women somehow seem to make the transition a little bit easier, and I think this has to do with the fact that they've been multi-purposing their whole lives. So it's not like they have one thing and they lose it. They have numerous things they've been juggling their whole lives, and so it's like one less ball, well, let's substitute a new ball and keep juggling. Men who are very career-focused, it's a different story. They put all their effort into this one thing. Society encourages them to do that, and then it stops. One of the things I learned, you might find this amusing, is that in Japan, the psychiatrists have discovered a new malady in the last 20 years that roughly translates to husband retired syndrome. And it occurs among something like a third to a half of Japanese women, because the men who have been working totally focused on their work for 40 years suddenly come home, and the women don't know what to do with them. They want to get involved in what they're doing, or they want to tell them how to do it better, which they have no business doing, and the women are lost. So we don't have it quite that bad, but more than one person has said to me that when a husband retires, it's a feminist issue. Because they really are sometimes very lost. And so one of the things that I talk about is that this is a transition period, and transitions are tough, but over time we get through them, and it's not expected or natural that on Friday you stop work and on Monday you have a whole new existence that you're very happy with. It doesn't work that way. It takes a while to sort of sort through your feelings and sort through what it is you really want to do or would like to do, and get up the confidence to do something entirely new. So the transition hits a lot of people in different ways, but that is one thing that is a fact that many men experience.
Yes, because of society. You're the breadwinner. You're supposed to be working, and then men, they basically, when they work. I mean, I'll talk about my personal experience. When Matt worked, that's all he did. I mean, he took the lawn. He did the stuff outside. I did everything inside. So. Right. You don't know what to do with yourself sometimes. If, I got a lot of men that might be different with the new generation. They don't even know where things are in the house. It's like, where's this? And it's just incredible. But, yeah, that's the big difference. How do you pronounce, I like this in your book where you have it's Japanese. You had this diagram.
The ikigai.
Ikigai, yeah. I wouldn't even know how to pronounce that. I love that. Can you talk about that? I love it.
It is ikigai is a Japanese concept about what it takes to find your passions, and it's basically like Venn diagrams, 4 of them overlapping, and it's very hard to explain this. It's a graphic thing. But what you're trying to do is you're looking at those activities that, I'm trying to find the diagram here so I can talk about it intelligently. You're trying to find what it is that you love, what it is that you're good at, what it is that the world needs, and what you can get paid for. And where they overlap, where all 4 of them overlap in the center, is your ikigai, which is your your life purpose. It's an interesting way to try to plan a new career, or to try to think about what you can do next.
Yeah, I really like that. I really do. When I was looking at it, and I said, "Wow, that is for me. That was powerful, and that's what I have done. I found a passion, or it found me. I mean, if someone had told me, let's say my show is 6 years old, I've been with Pastoral Talk Radio 7 years because I talked on Jeannie's show first. If anybody would have told me I would be interviewing people, I would have said, you're nuts. I would have said, you're crazy. There's no way I'd be doing that. And here I am doing it, and I enjoy doing it, and it gives me a purpose. And, when I get feedback, it really makes me feel good about myself.
Right, and you're doing something that other people appreciate, and they see the value that you're giving them. That's got to feel good.
And
when I feel that way, yeah.
Yeah, we don't always get feedback, but it really is nice when you do. But I feel like, and I say this on my show a lot, I wish I knew about resources during my caregiving with Matt. I wish they were available. I wish the information was available. And I think it's so important, Don, for people to know they're not alone. People think, oh, I'm alone in how I feel. They're not alone. You're not alone, people. This is why I want people to know. I'll do a shameless plug here about my show, because I have people on like you, Don, that you're an excellent resource. People should know about you. People should know about your book. They should start thinking about, as I call it, the AfterWork, finding fulfilling alternatives to retirement. And I like how you mentioned before we started to record, it's not just the financial planning. It's, I think, emotional. It's so many different perspectives of planning. And once you stop working, finding that emotional fulfillment.
I think that's what surprises people the most. They don't anticipate that things are going to change. Like relationships with your spouse might change because of the dynamic may very well change because you're both home, or because one of you is still working and the other one's not working and feels guilty that they're not working, which was true of my situation. My wife was still going full-time while I retired. And, all of this cultural messaging about you must work, you must be productive, you must contribute, made me feel really bad that I was sitting there and not doing anything. And here she was slaving away, her usual 80 hours a week, and I was taking it easy, and it didn't feel right. We got over it, but still, it's, we have these messages, and then things change, and we don't expect the psychological or the emotional turmoil that creates. So I don't talk much about the financial. I ignore the financial, and I ignore the health. I really talk about the impact of our emotions and how these dynamics change and what we can do about them and how we can take a more positive spin on it.
That's what I liked about your book. Your book is different. And that's one of the many things that I liked about your book, because you didn't talk about the financial planning. Your book is practical. People can pick this up and say, like, oh, wow, you know what? I really like to cook. I always wanted to be a baker or a chef. Maybe I should try my doing like a little side business and see how that goes.
Right. And the reason I don't talk about finances is because I resist the temptation to write about things that I know nothing about.
I understand that. That's important, right? But when you live right, that's important. When you live an experience, and also, Don, you point out in your book, if I remember correctly, what did you call it? Great divorces? Like people have been married for many years, 40 years, and they get divorced during their.
It does happen. It does happen.
Yeah.
I was fortunate I was fortunate in my case. We used I know COVID was a very disruptive time for many people, but for my wife and I, it was a dry run on retirement because we were housebound together for a year or two, and we discovered that we were still friends, and that was good because then when I retired, we didn't have to go through that again. We knew it was going to work out.
Yeah. They had a what do they call a dry run? When you go somewhere. That was, I could see where problems could happen because, if the wife is still working and the husband is at home, and she might say, "Why don't you vacuum?" or "Why don't you do laundry?" And the guy goes, "Well, I don't know how to do it," or that they're sexist. That's woman's work. Or, the husband might be critical of the wife. What are you doing that for? Things that you didn't notice about each other because you were so busy. You're now noticing.
And the other thing that happens is the people who retire after being in a corporate environment and they are looking for someone to type their correspondence for them, and they turn to their wife and, "I'm not your secretary." He doesn't have a secretary. He doesn't have someone to make the Xerox copies anymore. It's a strange feeling. But you don't make your spouse your aide and assistant smoothly. It doesn't work. Yes.
I really enjoyed talking to you, Don, about your book. What would you like, and I know there's many things that the reader can take away, what would you like the readers to take away? What are some of the things that are important you would like the readers to take away from your book?
I think the most important thing is to realize that we've been gifted with some extra years. The longevity that we have has really made the old form of retirement obsolete. And retirement was the beginning of the end in the old formulation. In my estimation, the AfterWork is not the beginning of the end. It can be the beginning of something new and very exciting. And I think that would be the main thing I would like to leave. We can find new reasons to be alive, new purpose, things that really are for our own enjoyment, and we don't have to feel guilty about them. And we have enough time that we can really pursue them in earnest. And that's the message.
I love that. That is so awesome. And that's true. See, you have time, as they say, to smell the roses. See the beauty. Hear the birds. I just interviewed someone. She did a book about, and it was all through the eyes of animals, birds. And I learned to appreciate my bird sounds when I go outside now. And, it is. And the gratitude is just really helps a lot. And let me tell you, folks, I was not always a grateful person. I wasn't. I was a very pessimistic person, believe me. I really was. I saw the glasses half empty all the time. It took my journey to really appreciate Matt's journey, to really appreciate life and how fragile and how precious it is. And then, you're right. When I was in when I worked in a nursing home as a teenager, I thought, wow, these people are 65 and older. Some might have been a little younger. They're old. Man, I'm going to be decrepit at 65? And I think us baby boomers, we're changing aging. We're changing how people view aging. We are living longer, thankfully, to medicine. And we have productive lives. And I want to tell young people, because young people hear this show, learn from your elders that we can be mentors. Think about being a mentor even. We could mentor young people. We are history books. Our elders are history books. We can learn from them. And there's so much to learn from people, their history, their experience, and share their stories. I'm so glad that you contacted me, Don, about coming on the show and discussing your book. Excuse me. Where can people purchase your book?
The book is available on Amazon, and if you just look for the title, The AfterWork, Finding Fulfilling Alternatives to Retirement, it will pop up. You can also read about it on my web page, which is Don Akchin, DonAkchin.com.
I was just going to ask you, how can people get in touch with you? And you just answered.
There it is.
Don Akchin. Folks, go on the website. Go on Don's website. I highly recommend it. And read the articles, his The End Game. And a while back, I'll give a little history. 3 years ago, I met Don. Don had me on his show. He used to have a podcast called The End Game. And I was on it. And I thank you for that opportunity, Don. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad I was able to have you on my show. And I thank you for contacting me and for writing this book. It's a very important book. And it's a fast read. It's short, to the point book. I just want to say how many pages it is. It's and you have resource notes in the back too, which are good. It is 87 pages, folks. You can read that. Instead of watching TV, read that. Might take you an hour or two. Excuse me. I sat down and I actually read it this morning. And I was really inspired. And I just think you did a great job. So best wishes on your book.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Betsy. It's been great talking to you, too.
Oh, you are welcome, and my pleasure. Folks, all the information about Don Akchin will be in the blog that Jeannie White, who's the station manager, writes, and Jeannie produces the show. You know what? Holiday time's coming around before you know it. This would make a great gift. It really would. The AfterWork, Finding Fulfilling Alternatives to Retirement. You know what? This is a book I think even young people should read. I think it's a great gift to give to your parent, grandparent, uncle, aunt, whoever. This is a very important book because even people in their 40s might be thinking, what am I going to do when I retire? That might seem a long time away, but life goes by pretty fast, doesn't it, Don? It goes by very quickly. It goes by very quickly, and I can't believe I'll be retired, be 6 years in March. It doesn't seem like it. I don't know where it went. I don't even know where the days go to. It goes by very quickly, the time. And I'm just grateful. I really am grateful that I get to talk to people like Don and read wonderful books. So, and thank you for sending me the book, Don. I appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure. and I am grateful that you have invited me on your show and given me a chance to talk about it.
Oh, absolutely. You are more than welcome to come back and talk about something else if you want. You just let me know. And I wanted to thank everyone for listening and subscribing. If you don't already subscribe to Chatting with Betsy, it is for free. I'm on Spotify, Spreaker, iHeart, Amazon Music, Please share this show. I want to reach as many people as possible. I want people to know they're not alone. There's resources. There's enjoy living. I want you all, everyone, to have a better quality of life, a better outlook on life, one that I wished I would have had in my youth. And I have it now, but it took me into my 60s to have it, folks. So if you could flip your attitude in your youth, do it. That's what I suggest. And I want to thank Lillian Caldwell, who's CEO of Pastoral Talk Radio, who makes this all possible. And as I always say, you can follow me on Facebook, Betsy Wurzel, Wurzel. You can take a look at my life. You can see pictures of Matt, my son, my dementia awareness that I do usually daily. And I'm just here for you all. And I want to thank you all for listening and subscribing. It means a lot to me. And as I always say at the end of my show, in a world where you could be anything, please be kind and shine your light bright, because we need it now more than ever before. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Pastoral Talk Radio Network, a subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Bye-bye now.